The rain drummed steadily against the window of my dimly lit basement workshop, where the faint glow of scattered gadgets hummed in sync with my solitary evening routine, drawing my gaze once more to the dusty old projector tucked in the corner, its antique casing, etched with faded symbols I'd never deciphered, sat like a forgotten relic amid the tangle of wires and half-assembled circuits cluttering my workbench. Remnants of endless nights lost in code and circuitry, chasing the thrill of creation in a life mired in predictable loops. I'd inherited it from distant kin, a quirky heirloom I'd power up occasionally, watching holographic ghosts of history flicker to life and respond to my voice with scripted wisdom that felt almost alive. Late-night forums murmured of stranger glitches that blurred the line between digital phantoms and something more insistent, more real. But I dismissed them as insomniac ramblings, content in my suburban cocoon, where shadows came only from the storm outside and the hum of machines within. Yet tonight, as the downpour intensified, a peculiar itch stirred, urging my fingers toward its switch, as if the device itself waited in the dimness, holding its breath. I couldn't shake the unease that settled after that night. The projector had done something off. The holograms no longer just replayed historical scenes. They lingered, flickering in and out like bad signals on an old TV. I told myself it was a glitch, perhaps corrupted code in its ancient system. But deep down, I knew better. Desperate for answers, I dove into research, starting with the usual tech forums, but spiraling quickly into the web's darker corners, places where anonymity reigned and discussions veered into the paranoid and impossible. In the dim light of my basement, my fingers flew across the keyboard as rain pounded outside, like it was trying to break in. Hidden behind layers of proxies and VPNs, I scoured dark websites, reading threads from users with handles like Shadow Circuit and Void Walker. Users posted fragmented accounts of similar devices, claiming they were prototypes from a defunct Cold War project called Project Veil. The experiment sought to bridge dimensions, drawing phantoms from parallel realities, or something far stranger. One description called it a tool for peering through the fabric, but most were vague, riddled with warnings like, "Don't turn it on during storms, that's when the barrier's thin." I laughed it off at first, but as I dug deeper, contacting obscure tech enthusiasts through encrypted chats, the pieces started fitting together in ways that made my skin crawl. One guy, going by the name Ecto-Engineer, claimed he'd seen one in person. "It's not just holograms," he messaged. "It's a window, and sometimes things look back." He shared scanned documents, faded blueprints with symbols matching the etchings on my projector. Allegedly, it was designed to simulate historical figures using AI, but the experiment went wrong, tapping into something unintended, a realm beyond death. Maybe. I spent hours cross-referencing, my eyes burning from the screen glare, piecing together a narrative that sounded like bad sci-fi. But then the holograms started reappearing without me turning the damn thing on. It began subtly. I'd be upstairs in the living room, nursing a beer and trying to unwind, when a faint glow would catch my eye. in the corner stood a ghostly figure, a man in outdated clothes from the 1920s, just watching me with eyes too real, too aware. He didn't move or speak, only observed. At first, I blamed my imagination, heightened by the research. I'd blink, and he'd vanish. But it happened again the next night. Then, with a woman in Victorian dress, her translucent form solid enough to cast a shadow on the wall. These silent spectators from past eras invaded my space. I unplugged the projector and buried it in a box under the workbench. But they kept coming. Forums called them passive observers, harmless at first. Paranoia crept in like fog, making me glance over my shoulder, certain I was being watched even in solitude. Sleep eluded me. I'd lie awake, eyes fixed on the ceiling, anticipating that ominous flicker. Then they grew interactive. One evening, while reading in my study, a book tumbled from the shelf across the room. No draft, no earthquake, just a deliberate shove. I froze, heart hammering. And there it was, a hologram of a child, no more than 10, with hollow cheeks and eyes like black pits, staring right at me. It reached out, and another book fell, pages flipping open to a passage about death and the afterlife. Coincidence? Bullshit. The next day, my computer glitched during work. Files rearranged themselves, documents opening to display cryptic messages. "The veil is thinning," typed in an unfamiliar font over and over. I ran antivirus scans and checked for hacks. Nothing. These entities were manipulating my world, bit by bit. The house began changing too, in ways that made me question my sanity. My once familiar home, a modest 2-story in the suburbs, warped subtly. I'd open the bathroom door and glimpse an endless hallway stretching into darkness, walls pulsing like breathing flesh. I'd slam it shut, heart racing, only to find it normal upon reopening. Furniture rearranged itself overnight. My couch shifted a foot to the left, chairs facing walls as if arranged for an invisible audience. The air grew heavier, charged with static, and sometimes the temperature plunged in specific spots, cold patches marking where the holograms had appeared. I needed help, so I formed a tentative alliance with an online contact, a reclusive historian named Dr. Wyatt Thorne. I'd found him on one of the forums. His profile claimed expertise in occult tech history. We chatted via encrypted video, his face obscured in shadows, his voice gravelly from years of smoking. "The projector isn't what you think," he told me. "It's tapping into an afterlife realm, a limbo where souls linger, trapped in regret. Project Veil was meant to communicate with them, but it tore holes instead." He sent digitized manuscripts about ancient artifacts bridging the living and the dead, with symbols matching my device's etchings. "Destroy it," he urged, "before they use you to cross over." Our conversations became my lifeline, a thread of sanity amid the madness. But then, one stormy night, much like the one that started it all, he went silent. His last message was frantic. "They're coming through. I see them. God, the eyes. Run, Michael, run! The chat died, his profile vanishing as if it had never existed. I tried tracing him, but he had been erased. Panic set in. Was he dead? Or worse? Misdirections piled up after that. I chased false leads, desperate to fix things. One forum suggested tampering with the device's code, hacking its internal OS to reset the parameters. I spent a sleepless night in the basement, tools scattered, prying open the casing. Symbols inside glowed faintly as I connected it to my laptop. Lines of archaic code scrolling across the screen. I input some commands, thinking I'd seal the breach. Big mistake. It triggered more aggressive manifestations. The hologram shifted, mimicking my friends to lure me into isolation. I'd hear my buddy Mark's voice calling from the kitchen. "Hey, Michael, come check this out." I'd rush in, only to find a grotesque version of him, face melting like wax, grinning with too many teeth. It would laugh, a sound like static and screams, before vanishing, leaving me alone in the dark. The psychological strain was crushing. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford. I'd lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, waiting for that telltale flicker. As nights blurred into days haunted by vivid nightmares of being dragged into a bottomless void where grasping hands murmured incomprehensible regrets. I'd wake, sweating, sheets tangled, arms scratched by unseen forces. Physical threats escalated. Entities clawed at walls, carving warnings into the wood. Unexplained burns seared my skin like fiery fingertips, hot and throbbing. Entrapment consumed me, the house a tightening cage, catastrophe lurking just beyond sight. It all culminated one night during a massive storm that shook the foundations. The power flickered and died, plunging everything into darkness. Cornered in my basement workshop, I watched the projector hum to life on its own, its glow the only light piercing the blackout. Thunder rattled the windows as a horde of holographic figures from the afterlife breached into reality. They were no longer mere ghosts. Their forms had become corporeal and grotesque, distorted faces with hollow eyes that devoured light, elongated limbs pulsing with ethereal blue veins, bodies twisted as if stretched on a cosmic rack. Dozens poured from the projector's beam, filling the room with murmurs and moans. I bolted, heart pounding, up the stairs into the house's now labyrinthine layout. Doors appeared and vanished without warning, while hallways extended impossibly into the unknown. The confrontation erupted into a chaotic chase. I'd turn a corner, only for the floor to give way to a yawning void that pulled at me with icy hands. I leaped across, barely making it, as one of the entities lunged, its claws raking my back and drawing unnaturally cold blood. Sensory overload struck. The air thickened and iced, making every breath a struggle, while deafening static hums vibrated in my bones. The scent of ozone filled my nostrils, constant and overwhelming, like the prelude to a lightning strike. They swarmed everywhere like insects. I dodged through my former living room, now a maze of shifting furniture and pulsing shadows. One grabbed my ankle, its touch draining my strength like blood from a wound. Visions flooded my mind. Tormented souls from beyond, trapped in eternal loops of regret and rage. A man reliving his betrayal of a loved one over and over. A woman, frozen in her violent death, screaming silently. I shook it off, staggering toward the basement, my panicked plan taking shape. Overload the projector and sever the connection. Back down the stairs, slipping on floors that tilted like a funhouse, I reached the workbench. The entities closed in, their forms merging and splitting into grotesque amalgamations. I grabbed a hammer, smashing at the casing while fumbling with wires to short-circuit it. But they swarmed me, cold hands pinning my arms, their touch burning like dry ice. Vitality drained faster now, my vision blurring, limbs heavy. In the visceral peak, one dominant figure rose, an amalgamation of multiple souls, a hulking mass of writhing faces and limbs, eyes everywhere. It pinned me down against the concrete floor, its weight crushing, and revealed through fragmented screams the truth.
Not a tool, gateway. We manipulated. Escape limbo. You conduit.
I thrashed, adrenaline surging, breaking free in a frenzy just enough to swing the hammer one last time. It connected with the projector's core, shattering glass and metal in a blinding flash that lit the basement like a supernova. The entities scattered, howling as the light consumed them, their forms dissolving into sparks. But not without cost. I felt deep, otherworldly wounds tearing into me. Not just flesh, but something deeper, blurring the line between life and death. Pain radiated from gashes glowing with ethereal light, visions lingering in my mind as the void pulled at my edges. The storm raged outside, and as the flash faded, I collapsed, breathing ragged, wondering if I'd truly closed the gate or just widened it. I woke in a sterile hospital room, bandaged and aching, the beeps of monitors a monotonous lullaby against the throb of wounds that went beyond flesh. Physically, I'd survived. The doctors called it a miracle, blaming the gashes and burns on a freak electrical surge during the storm. But my spirit, fractured like the projector's core I'd hammered to oblivion, echoing in my mind was their final monologue, the entity's collective voice again, a chorus of despair seeping into my thoughts like poison.
We are the endless hunger, trapped in the void's malice, forever craving the warmth of the living world. Escape is illusion. It only spins the wheel anew, invading your realm to sate our despair, perpetuating the cycle that devours all.
It replayed in loops, a haunting refrain that made every quiet moment a torment, reminding me of the existential rot they'd dragged from the afterlife. The projector was gone, reduced to charred fragments that the authorities dismissed as junk from my accident. Yet the breach lingered, irreversible, Flickering lights danced in my hospital room at odd hours, bulbs stuttering like Morse code from the beyond. On the streets outside, as I wheeled for tests, I'd catch strangers with hollow gazes, unnervingly familiar, their eyes mirroring those spectral pits, hinting that fragments of the entities had dispersed, latching on to the unsuspecting, ready to invade new hosts and perpetuate their despairing cycle. In the dead of night, as rain pattered against the window, I stared at my reflection in the glass, seeking some shred of normalcy. But it smiled back independently, a grin widening without my will, eyes glinting with ethereal blue. The horror had embedded itself, blurring the lines between reality and whatever lies in the shadow. Watch your shadows closely tonight. They may no longer be just your own. Join us inside the void, listener. Tell us of your grave misfortunes on r/ancientmalicious. Give us your gold, your treasures, your time. Join the subscription cult. Become like us. Become one with us.